All right, so today we're going to talk about piecewise functions. Again, a piecewise function is exactly what it says. It's pieces of different functions. So on this example that I have up here at the top for you, it shows the way that a piecewise function looks. It has f of x is equal to 2x plus 8 if your x's are less than or equal to negative 2, and f of x is equal to x squared if your x's are greater than negative 2. Really what this is asking you to do is to graph this line, the 2x plus 8, but only keep it where your x's are less than negative 2. So do you see where they kind of drew that dotted line to show that we're only keeping this side of our graph? This other side of our graph we wouldn't keep. And then we would graph the x squared, which is that parabola right here, but we only keep the parabola where our x's are greater than negative 2. So we're going to graph these next week, but that kind of just shows you visually what a piecewise function is. We keep pieces of our graphs according to the domain that they give us, what x values we're going to keep, okay? So when we look at a piecewise function, it actually looks something like this. It gives you parts of domains that gives you functions to look at. So here's this 1/4 x minus 1 right here. 1/4 x minus 1 is a line if we were to graph it. We would only keep that line if our x values are not equal to 2. So tell me what that would be. Could I have 3? Yeah, because 3 is not equal to 2. Could I have negative 6? Yeah, because negative 6 is not equal to 2. Could I have 300? Right, I could really pick any value here except for the value of 2. And then this one would be my answer, or the line that I would graph if x was 2. Okay, so I would be at negative 1. This would be y equals negative 1, which would be a horizontal line. But really what we're going to do today is we're going to substitute our values into our piecewise function. And in order to figure out which function to substitute it into, we look at this part at the back for our x values. Okay, so if I'm finding x of negative 1, I'm going to see which one it fits better into. Is negative 1 not equal to 2, or is negative 1 equal to 2? Did you see how I just plugged it in there for x to see which one it really fits into? Which one of these statements is true? The top or the bottom? The top. So guess which function I put my x value into? I put it into the top function. Does that make sense how I figured out which function to substitute into? So instead of 1/4 x minus 1, I'm going to do 1/4 times negative 1 minus 1, because I substitute this into the function, and I figured out which function to substitute it into by checking the restrictions on my x values at the back. So just solve this for me now. A negative 1/4 minus 1, or I said that wrong, I'm sorry. A negative 1/4 times a negative 1 would be a positive 1/4, and a positive 1/4 minus 1 would be a negative 3/4, or you could change that to a negative 0.75, whichever you prefer to see on your calculator. Okay, so when we substitute negative 1 into this function, we got a negative 0.75 back out. Okay. All right, we're substituting in this time 2 in place of the x. So again, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to decide if it goes into the top function or into the bottom function. So if I put 2 in right here for x, it would say 2 does not equal 2. That would be a false statement. Do you guys agree with me on that? Okay, what if I put it here? 2 equals 2. Is that true? Yeah, so I'm going to use this function to substitute into. Now, we've had ones like this before where there's no place to substitute in an x value. Do you remember what I said the answer was when that happens? Just that value, right? Because there's no place to substitute the x into, so my answer is automatically the value that it gives me. So negative 1 in this case. All right, help me with number 3. Am I going to substitute 5 into the top function, or into the bottom function? Top. Because if I put 5 up here, it would be 5 is not equal to 2, which is a true statement. So I'm going to put 5 into the top function. So I would have 1/4 x minus 1, but in place of the x, I'm going to put 5. Then you're really just going to do that math on your calculator to figure out what that value is. So someone get that for me. Good, and then did you subtract the 1 off of it?
No.
So, because this is 1 1/4, and 1 1/4 minus 1 would just be 1/4, right? Or 0.25 if you'd prefer to see the decimal point number. Okay. Questions on how I got that? All right, this next one, then we're going to do 6 problems off of this set of functions right here. This piecewise function has 3 parts to it. If we were to graph it, this would be a parabola, this would be a line, and this would be a horizontal line. So we're not graphing today, though. That's coming next week. But really what we're going to do is we're going to look at these restrictions back here to decide which one of these 3 functions I'm going to substitute into to get my answer. So my first x value that I'm given is 0. Okay? So I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, is 0 less than or equal to 0? Yeah, it does. It is. So it actually fits into this top one right here. I didn't have to check the other ones. So I'm going to substitute 0 into that equation, the x squared minus 5. So I'll have 0 squared minus 5. Which gives you what for an answer? -5, good. Okay. Questions on how I decided where to substitute it in? Because all I really did was find which one of these values it fits. So let's try -4. And I could check from the bottom to the top to the bottom. It doesn't matter. Is -4 less than or equal to 0? Or is -4 between 0 and 7? Or is -4 greater than 7? Which one of these 3 spots did that fit into? The top. So I'm going to use my top equation. So I'm going to use x squared minus 5, but instead of x squared, I'm going to put in -4. So I have -4 squared minus 5, and I'm just going to find that value. So -4 squared is going to be a positive 16, right? Remember, you have to put that in parentheses in your calculator so that you get the positive number. So negative times a negative makes a positive. Positive 16 minus 5, which is 11. Good. Okay, questions on how I did that? All right, let's see where this next one gets substituted into at then. We're looking at the number 7 for my x value. Is 7 less than or equal to 0? No, it's not, right? So I'm not using that top one. Is 7 greater than 0 and less than or equal to 7? Yeah, so it fits into this middle one this time, right? So my middle equation is x plus 4. And what am I going to substitute in place of the x? I'm going to put in 7. So I get 7 plus 4, which is 11. Okay. Questions on how I did that? All right, the same thing again then, still using this same h of x function, which is a piecewise function, has 3 parts to it. This time I'm going to find my h of 8 value, which means 8 is my x value. So I go and I sub them in over here. Is 8 less than or equal to 0? No, so I don't put it in here. Is 8 between 0 and 7? No, so I don't get to put it in here. Is 8 greater than 7? Yeah, so it goes into this one. When you go into this function, though, right here, the function is the number 6. Is there a place for you to substitute the 8 into an x value? Nope, so what's your solution? 6. Okay. Questions on how I did that? All right, I want to give you a head start then to try the next two on your own, and then I'll work them really quickly with you to make sure that you got them correctly. I'll give you about 30 seconds to look at those. All right, on this -1 right here, did you put it into the top one, the middle one, or the bottom one? Top, because it fits into this criteria, right? -1 is less than or equal to 0. So you would have done a -1 squared minus 5 because we substituted into that function. -1 squared is a +1. +1 minus 5 is a -4. How'd you do on that one? Give me a thumbs up if you got it right. Nice. Okay. All right, the next one, my x value is 3. Did you put it in the top, the middle, or the bottom? The middle. Good. So we're going to put it into the x plus 4. So we'd have 3 plus 4, which is 7. Okay. This is how piecewise functions work. You have domain restrictions, which are your x values. So you got to substitute your x value into the domain restrictions to see which one of them it satisfies, and then that tells you which function to substitute your number into. Okay? We'll do more with piecewise functions on Monday, but today we're just going to substitute into them.